think we should be good now.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to press this button, and now I'm recording it back up. So if you need it, just let me know.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, good. All right, I'm good now.
Okay.
Thanks again for your time this morning. Much appreciated.
It's a pleasure. Any friend of Inman's is a friend of mine.
You bet. So Seth, I thought I would get us started off with a couple of questions. We put together a couple of questions, so I thought I'd just have a couple of talking points. You're famous for being a marketing guru. 18 best-selling books. I don't have to tell you on the subject. You're known for them worldwide. And Inman is a leader in real estate industry, news, and technology. So how did your world collide with Inman's to bring you to Inman Connect as a keynote speaker?
I think I first did something with them 10 years ago, maybe. I get to define marketing as anything I want, and I define marketing as everything. Marketing is the story we tell, the life we live, the impact we make, the connections, the attention, the trust, the persuasion. Well, if that's not real estate, I don't know what is.
That's excellent. So your focus on your keynote address is what's next for marketing in the digital age. So what do you think is next?
Well, let's understand that there's two reasons why the profession of real estate brokerage even exists. Mm-hmm. The first one is that there was a shortage of trust. It's a very substantial transaction, and doing it with a stranger who might leave town tomorrow is fraught with all sorts of uncertainty. The second thing is that there was a spectacular shortage of information. That if I decide I want to move to Tucson or across town, I have no idea what's for sale. I need an intermediary. Well, what has the internet done? What the internet has done is eliminated the second problem completely. There is no shortage of information anymore. And in fact, a human slows us down, it doesn't speed us up. So in the Google world, it's almost impossible to say, I am a real estate broker and I know more about listings than you do. Because it's not me, it's the computer, and the computer knows everything. I type it in, it knows everything. So we can't, that's what travel agents tried to get away with, and it didn't work. Like, when was the last time you called up a travel agent?
Well, yeah, I know. I used to call my travel agent years ago, and they would book my tickets and send me paper tickets.
Don't need to. Exactly. So now we're left with the first question, which is trust. And trust and attention go hand in hand. We are able to trust the people we know about, but we can't know about everyone because we don't have enough attention to go around. And so if you're in the real estate business, you cannot be focused on the fact that you have more information, because you don't. What you have to be focused on is that you are living a more trustworthy life, that you are contributing to the community more. Those things are why you will get my attention and trust, not the person one click away.
So, and I met with you a couple of years ago. You had a conference in New York City. I actually took my daughter along, and we talked a little bit about the brokerage business. And I had actually posed a question to you during that seminar. One of the things I'd posed was, what do you think in terms of expanding a brokerage? Where do you think this goes? And you were very succinct, very quick on your feet, and said, real estate's very hyper local, and there's a guy in your community who sells a lot of the houses. So the number one thing to do there in that case is to be the guy, nail your main market before you attempt to expand. Do you still see it that? I mean, you're nodding, so I'm guessing you still see it that way.
Yeah, I'm glad I agree with myself. I don't think there's any doubt that this is correct. That if you can't figure out how to be beloved and trusted and talked about by the people you are geographically intimate with, why on earth do you think you're going to succeed by going to a place where no one knows who the hell you are? You can't.
Right.
And almost every business, almost every organization would do better by being more embraced by the people they've already got than they would be by getting more people.
Excellent. So what do you think? You look at these markets all the time, and when you see something broken or a little broken, you're always trying to do things that or recommending to the readers, figure it out. Look for what's broken and figure it out. What do you think is fundamentally broken in the real estate business?
I think that in the residential middle class real estate business, the one I'm most familiar with, mm-hmm. there is low barrier to entry. When prices are going up, we know for a fact that more people flow into the industry. And there is a belief that you get along by going along, you go along by getting along. You have just the right four-door kind of car for your neighborhood, and you're pleasant. And, that's like being a center fielder who comes to the conclusion that the way to be good at the game is just to be standing in that sort of the field where a lot of balls drop. That's an amateur approach that could certainly make you a living, but that's not the way that professionals are succeeding. You don't succeed by being more average than everyone else. You don't succeed by just being, sort of sitting in the open house longer than anybody else. You succeed by being a meaningful, specific, not a wandering generality. You succeed by doing the difficult work that professionals get paid to do. And it's when those difficult moments show up where we feel like hiding, that's what an opportunity. You finally got your chance to be a pro. That's what's missing for a lot of people who are trying to make it in this industry.
Well, you made a comment, and maybe I'll take this out of context, but you said go along by getting along. There's a lot of that in the real estate business. You may have heard over the years that there's these notions that real estate brokerages charge I don't want to say a set commission, but you a lot of times see a typical commission rate. You see really very similar delivery models where people do essentially the same things. I mean, we joke sometimes in real estate that the 3 P's of real estate is you put the property on the MLS, you put a sign in the yard, and then you pray. And so,
exactly.
So rather than practice the 3 P's of real estate, I embarked on a little program with my brokerage. When I set out to do my brokerage, I wanted to do it differently. And one of the things I did was I monkeyed around with the commission rate because I think that's something that consumers are very interested in. And I did things like publish my commission rate, which was very radical. So I did not go along to get along, that's for sure. And that's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, I love this. Let me put it back to you a slightly different way. If I said to you as a broker, or you as a broker, or her as a broker, you had to charge 1% more commission than everybody else, what would you do? Because whatever the answer to that question is what you should do now. Right? You don't get ahead by lowering your rate because that's a race to the bottom.
Right.
You get ahead by acting like your rate is even higher.
Right. Yeah. So adding more value to the transaction certainly is a
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So certainly, I've been a student of Seth Godin for quite some time. I don't know if our producer Don Pellis might have shared with you a little story about the original way I came across you in Fast Company.
Hi, Don.
Hey, Seth.
Dawn was just going on about how wonderful you were, but she did not actually, I don't think, tell me the origin story. So feel free.
No.
Okay, so Dawn.
There's Dawn. Hi, Dawn.
All right.
Hey, Seth. Thank you so much.
There you go. So Dawn, I told Dawn a story about when I first made your acquaintance. Really was back. I want to say it's a good 15 years ago. It's when you launched the Purple Cow book. And I was reading an article in Fast Company, and I came across where I could buy these things in bundles. And and you didn't describe how they would come. You just said you could buy them in bundles, right? You still have one of those, Seth? You have the milk carton? Here it is. So there's the spoiler. All right. So I actually didn't keep one for myself. So there's the Purple Cow. So what happened was I was teaching an entrepreneurial marketing course that I had helped develop for Penn State. And I ordered your book thinking I'd just get a bunch of books in a box. And instead I opened it up, and to my surprise, and that was the delightful part of it. You open it up, and inside was a bunch of milk cartons with the book inside the milk carton. So I handed these out to my students who looked at me like I had 3 heads. And it described, the notion behind the book and asked them to read the book. And then they carried those milk cartons around campus for the rest of the day. And they were quizzed and asked about, what is this purple milk carton that you're carrying around? And I got questioned by a number of professors who wanted to know what was going on with all this. It created quite a buzz when we did this. So that's how I first made your acquaintance. I thought there's something to this guy who's, we ordered a bunch of copies of the book, and instead you get them in milk cartons.
Yeah, no, that you told the story very well. I'm sorry if I stepped on your punchline. If you had one today, you could sell it on eBay for a lot of money. This really had a big impact on my career. The book before it had failed very dramatically, and the publisher from that book had said he wanted nothing to do with me ever again. And so I had no publisher, so I published it myself in this form.
Wow.
And it broke even, which was my goal because I sold it at cost. And it then launched the platform that enabled me to get back into the swing of the kind of publishing I wanted to do.
Excellent.
And the irony, of course, is if I had had a publisher, they never would have let me do a milk carton.
No, I'm sure. No, they wouldn't. You wouldn't have got the permission for that. What do you call the permission marketing? So, exactly. And this is a little bit interesting because and I'm not looking to race to the bottom in my brokerage, but when we launched our brokerage, we came out with a 4.5% commission model, and we did that not because we were looking to discount. We really redefined acquiring clients because a lot of clients really want a better rate, particularly as home prices have increased in price, and particularly when you see people are selling homes in $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000 price points. They really look at the value proposition and say, why am I paying 6% to sell a home?
Yeah.
Right.
So
we reset the commission rate to 4.5% and explained that we're doing everything you would expect, and we're doing it adding value. We do all kinds of different things in our brokerage to add value to actually exceed their expectations. And the notion behind that was that our acquisition became much easier because people they really look at the 4.5%, and we essentially, for lack of a better term, buy sellers
sure.
at that rate. So we're actually buying them. And everything I've read about what you've written, it's always about adding value, and if you can, charge more and try to charge more. And what my point of view is that the market was really not, how do you want to put it, not relevant in terms of the 6%. Like that was just a number that was an arbitrary number that arrived over time. And it wasn't like that's the market rate. That's just what the market, it's kind of like go along by getting along. It was almost like a set rate. And so we really looked at that and said, we want to reset the market expectations for what we think is a fair rate. And it's been very good for us. I'm just interested in your thoughts on that approach.
Well, the business school professor in me says that it clearly costs a broker more than 1.5% to acquire a client. Mm-hmm. So that's an excellent strategic decision until the guy down the street lowers his commission to 4.5%.
Right.
You are taking advantage of the fact that you're in an extremely conservative industry in a conservative part of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to take them a long time to wake up unless they watch this video, in which case they'll go, oh, I'm going to lower my rate to 4.5%.
Right.
So when that happens, then what should you do? And that's where my advice comes in.
Right.
Because the fact is you found a discontinuity in the market that you could take advantage of. No argument. You should do that.
Right.
Then what? And it's the then what. So if I think about Amazon, right? Amazon used the book market as a cheap way to acquire online customers. Mm-hmm. Lower the price, increase the selection. But once you do that, mm-hmm. and then people get used to it, that won't be enough because then Walmart will catch up to you.
Right.
When I spoke at Walmart a couple of years ago, they had a sign on the wall that said, you can't out Amazon Amazon. Right? Now this is a company that was 100 times the size of Amazon at the time.
Right.
Amazon had already won. Mm-hmm. It's not because they could sell a book cheaper, because they couldn't. It's because they had Prime. It's because they had figured out how to scale customer service in a way that Walmart couldn't have. Blah, 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 blah. They had all these other things that weren't relevant to the fact that their books were also cheaper. Now there's all these people who will pay extra at Amazon. They don't even know whether it's extra or not. They're just in, right? That's your challenge going forward. Your challenge going forward is, okay, I figured out how to get momentary market dominance in terms of acquiring more sellers.
Right.
Now what do I do?
Right.
And it seems to me that the paradigms of real estate are just itching to be changed, and very few people have the guts to change them.
Right, and that's one of the things we've encountered quite a bit. Is there's such the business of real estate has been so slow to change, and to some degree they feel very resilient that we've not been disintermediated like the folks in the airline reservation business or the travel agents. And so there's this resilience that says we're just going to be here forever, and I just don't agree with that. I think that we have to really look hard at this business to say, everybody wants to take us out of the equation. We have to really think hard about how we're going to stay in it.
Oh yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, the car dealers feel the same way, but Tesla's already figured out how to do that.
Right.
Bit by bit, all we need, as someone like Toll Brothers comes along, first with new houses, but then figuring out how to get into used houses. There's all these pressures, and the internet doesn't want you in the way. And if I take a look at New York City rentals now, the New York City rental market is so driven by the internet that the fee that goes to the actual broker is now tiny because the broker doesn't have to do anything.
Right.
And that's going to spread. Why shouldn't it? There's billions of dollars on the table.
Right. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And I think that there's real estate, it's had a lot of disruption, I think, in the last 5 years. I think that's going to continue. I'm sure that you have some thoughts for that for the listeners in Inman, and we don't want to scoop the Inman conference and people don't want to show up for it, right? So how much more time do we have? We still got on time? Or are we about wrapping up?
We have about 4 minutes.
Okay, great. Interestingly, we hear so much about social media, posting listings on Facebook, for example, or on Twitter, but you're not on Twitter or on Instagram, right?
Or Facebook.
Or Facebook. So what do you think? I mean, a lot of realtors are spending a lot of time and effort in these types of venues. You have a thought on that?
It's one question. It's very simple. And if you think about it hard, it will change everything. And the question is, will they miss you if you are gone?
I've read that somewhere.
Yeah. And so I use Twitter and Facebook to repost my blog every day. And I would like to believe that if I stopped blogging after 10 plus years, someone would miss me. Not everyone, but someone would. The question is, if agent number 7 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania stopped her relentless Facebooking, would anyone miss it? And the answer is no. So
that's correct.
If it's not going to be missed, don't do it. Do something that will be missed instead.
Gotcha.
And it's more about this going along to get along thing, which is you've got to figure out how to be a meaningful specific who is speaking up with anticipated personal and relevant messages that people choose to get.
Excellent. Let's see if I got any other questions. I guess that's a question on digital marketing, which brings us back to your keynote. What do you think is next for the marketing in the digital age when it comes to real estate? Do you have any thoughts on where real estate's headed for the digital age?
Yeah, I think the most important thing I can say about this is it doesn't matter what's next. This is what's next. And instead of waiting to be an early adopter of the next thing, it makes way more sense to be a power adopter of this thing, because this thing is going to be around for a long time.
Right. I think a lot of folks look at real estate and think that it's got a lot of change in it and that it's going to be fleeting and it's going to go away. And I think that that's misunderstanding the market. I think there's still a lot of powerful forces in the real estate market. You have to, and I think to some degree when I got into it, I didn't respect them as much as I do now. And I know folks like at Redfin understand it better now too, because when you look at it, it's not as simple as what, you look at it from an outsider standpoint, it's not as simple as you might think. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yes, sir.
Great. Well, I think that's pretty much what we had for today.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the generosity in doing this, and I'll see you in New York.
All right. Thank you as well.
Cheers.
Cheers.